classy, no charades. Payroll baddies, rain and fire, get paid. Payroll baddies, rain and fire, get paid.
Oh!
Welcome back, everybody, to the Payroll Baddies podcast. And we got a special edition for you all today. We are so excited. We're joined by a special guest, Chris McKee, who I'm going to introduce in just a second. But before we get started, you might notice something is different. There's somebody missing. And you know what? It's our again, so-called baddies, Giovanna and Jesse, who decided not to show up. So again, shame on them. Exactly. When you see them, tell them, hey, do you not care about payroll? Do you not care about people getting paid? Is that what you really care about? I mean, is that what you think?
All right. You know, they might be actually helping with payroll,
Sure. We'll give them the benefit of the doubt. All right. Let's get into this. Before we do, for all of our existing listeners who are tuning in, thank you so much for your support. And for all you new listeners, welcome to the podcast. Just a couple of things. I mean, the one big thing about who we are and why we're doing this is we really want to shine a light on the baddies out there who are taking care of people, making sure the employees get their paycheck, because nobody's again, there's not enough spotlight on them, and that's what we want to do, is put a spotlight on them. The other thing, 100%. I just want to be sure everybody knows before listening to this podcast, we are a little bit biased, and we are very, again, biased on the SAP side. So again, I just wanted to say that for your own benefit. So let's get started. So let me introduce Chris. Let me see if I can do this. All right. Hailing from multiple Fortune 500 companies, a global payroll leader, a true SAP lover, and a certified payroll baddie, Chris McKee.
Chris.
Welcome.
All right, Chris, take it away.
Yeah. I'll start, Rod. Chris actually did get an official knighting too. He's been on the page, so he's got the chain authentically. Now we're excited to get him on the podcast. I've asked this question in the past in a couple of other episodes, and I know what your answer is going to be, which is one of the reasons why I'm so excited about this episode, Chris. We've talked about it late night, Pink Street, when we were getting down. I know Sonny has heard it, Raj. Todd, you might have left a little early, though, didn't he?
I got my sleep, man.
I know. So, tell me, Chris, you've been in payroll game for a long time and worked with huge companies. You've certainly seen your fair share of unusual nightmare scenarios. Tell me about that. Tell me about the biggest nightmare you've ever had dealing with global payroll.
Yeah, I think, looking back, probably the biggest nightmare scenario was when UKG went through a big cyber incident and essentially was down. And at that point, we weren't receiving any time data at all. And we had to continue paying a pretty large population, almost 125,000 people, 80 of those in the U.S. And we pay on a weekly basis. So that had to be the toughest,
Oh my God.
biggest nightmare scenario that you could possibly have.
Yeah, so what was that like, right? So, like, when that first happened, what communication did you get? Right? What were the reactions of the payroll baddies, the payroll people? I mean,
Sure.
how did you guys deal with that?
Yeah, so I remember it actually quite well, even though it was about 4 or 5 years ago now. It was December the 11th on a Saturday night about 9 o'clock.
Oh, boy.
And
Or
these are the
December,
companies,
too.
if you remember, right? We had a really, really big team. A lot of those team members were in India. And during that time of night, those team members were monitoring interfaces and making sure the data was moving in and out of the system as you would expect, because we're going to payroll on Sunday, the very next day. And about 9 p.m., they started getting alerts that the system wasn't available. And so they went through the standard protocols that we have. It appeared to be a system outage or just a downtime at that point. So they went through protocols to notify people, let us know, with the idea that we would pick it up U.S. time early Sunday morning, December 12th. About 7 a.m. Sunday morning, I got a call from one of my managers on my team in the US who said the system's still not up. So we think it's more than just a standard maintenance outage or something else. Something's going on. Just letting you know at this point, obviously a little concerned, but it wasn't elevated just yet. About another hour and a half later, that same manager called me back and said it's really not up and starting to get worried at this point because we did reach out to the vendor, called our customer care line, no response, right? So at that
And this
point,
one public. Nothing public. Nothing public had come out about what was going on.
Nothing was posted on of course, like most large software companies, they've got a support portal. You go to the portal. There was no indication of an outage, no email from our account representative, and they weren't answering the phone right away.
We're not shade here. This could happen to any vendor. This is definitely not shade against UKG. I just want to make, because that's throwing some bad energy out there. We don't need it. So, but go ahead with your story.
Absolutely. So we didn't get much of a response, so we started getting worried. And then a couple hours later, we got just a note that said, look, start preparing for an extended outage. And that was just before noon on Sunday. And so now all of a sudden you can see the gears start turning, right? Because now they're saying an extended outage. Well, what is that? Is that hours?
Yeah.
Like for a large company, typically like extended maintenance hours are measured in hours, not days. So we started thinking, okay, well, what does that look like? Can we run payroll Monday? Can we run it Tuesday? So a lot of kind of what if scenarios going around. But then UKG sent out a formal announcement saying, implement your continuity plan, your business continuity plan, and expect an extended outage. And so, okay, then it started becoming a real reality that we had to start preparing for pay without time. So,
oh my God.
Yeah, so I mean that is pretty intense, Chris. I mean, I guess did you guys already have like a contingency plan put in place to handle situations like this, right? And if not, like how quickly did you put that together? And then how did you actually run payroll without the time data, right? Like how many, like was the team working overtime, 24 hours? Curious to hear those thoughts.
Yeah, great question. We did have a business continuity plan, but I will tell you a couple of things happened. We wrote that plan early on, like almost 10 years before this outage. And we wrote it when we were running time in an on-premise system and running payroll in an SAP on-premise system. So when you look at those on-premise systems, you look to your internal IT teams, right? We had a 3-day SLA to restore from a backup. We could go get another server, procure another server, stand that up very quickly, do a full restore, and now all of a sudden you've got time turned back on and you could keep running, right? That was what our continuity plan was built around. It never really considered, because if you think about it, this was well before everything started moving to the cloud. What would happen in a cyber kind of incident, right? Where it was down for not just 3 days with a backup and a restore, but now a multiple week outage, right? So, our continuity plan said, take last week's file, we're going to copy that, run it again, and then process pay. And then the very next week, we'll be able to back that file out, put the new file in, and we're golden, right?
Power of SAP Payroll Retro, right? Because you could place
using
the
power
file
of
and
SAP
everything would
Retro.
auto-calculate, right?
Absolutely. But what we quickly realized on Sunday was that loading last week's file, time is very dynamic, right? It changes every day. You could have overtime, you could have double time, you've got meal penalties in California, you've got all kinds of stuff that you really have to account for. And so we realized just taking last week's file wasn't going to be good enough. So we actually deflexed our business continuity plan for a multiple week outage. We kind of circled the wagons with the team. We came up with, hey, we've got a wage type in production that can be used to pay a flat amount to our hourly population. We utilized that wage type. We had a mass upload utility that we provided to the field. We were able to run reports, et cetera. And the good news is, by using some of the pre-built, pre-configured wage types, the mass upload capability, et cetera, we also landed on the fact that because time was so dynamic, we had to kind of try to take as much variance out of the time from week to week as you can. And so we kind of settled on a 12-week average of earnings for an employee. We used that 12-week calculation, provided it to our time admins in the field to do some validation. They also looked at, was there kind of extenuating circumstances with specific employees that they could address? But for the most part, we just loaded flat pay for every single person and paid it almost as a salary with no time data.
Wow. Can we just give a round of applause? Like, this is,
well, that's
this
amazing.
Is amazing.
I have again, Chris, I know, I mean, obviously it's so crazy to hear a story like that. And again, we can talk more about preparation and things that everybody should be thinking about. But what was the, again, you said it's December 11th, right? I think that's the date you used.
Of course.
What is going on with you and the other payroll baddies, and like, what's the mood? And again, we want some juicy stuff here, so don't leave anything out.
So the mood is you're going right into year end, right? So part of it is you're getting ready for game time of paying out the annual bonuses. You're also prepping W-2s. You're doing all of that work to close out the year. And this incident happened 2 weeks before we start kind of that payroll Super Bowl, if you will.
Yep. Man.
Wow. Just, again,
it
just goes to...
Yeah, no. I was just going to say, I mean, guys, like, for all the listeners that are out there, right? Like, this is what the true sausage making really looks like. And then, like, this is why we do what we do and we love what we do, is because at the end of the day, people got to get paid. If you don't get paid, you get on the news, just like we did, last time that something like this happened. So to heroes like Chris and all the other payroll baddies out there, like, thank you, right? Like, this is not easy, kind of handling all of this stuff.
Chris, I think we need to send you like, I don't know, what's the number, a dozen chains, and you need to go send them to all the people that had to deal with this on your team, right? We got to get that out there. I can only imagine.
Very big team that helped behind the scenes keeping payroll running. For sure.
I bet, right? So, I mean, I'm just thinking about this and what that's like, and just being responsible for that. It's just a terrifying thought. But I know you're interacting with a lot of parties too. So what was the response from? I'm sure with an issue like this, you're probably dealing with like the C-level at your company, but then you probably also have, some employees that are very, oh, okay, fine, I'll work with you, and others that are just pissed, breaking down the door. What was that like for the different people, right?
Yeah, so, starting with the employees, obviously, they're just trying to go to work every day, try to get paid, and really kind of our frontline time admins were the face of the outage to those employees, so they were working with them. Some admins really had a difficult time because the employees were real difficult. They didn't understand what was going on. Some were great and kind of took it on their shoulders and said, hey, look, the system's down, but I'm going to work with you and we'll figure this out together. It really kind of just threw a wrench in a lot of processes, like asking for time off and putting time off in the system, and, sick leave, or somebody had to go do jury duty or something else. So really, it was kind of a mixed bag for the frontline associates. And part of what we did with my team was really try to help, reassure the process, what's going on, make sure they had the tools available, and then also keep the line of communication open with them so they understood what was going on. When do we think we're going to get the system back? When it's coming back? What do you have to do, et cetera? So, kudos to all those time admins out there who really kind of dealt with the frontline employees who were just trying to continue to make product and serve.
We've talked about this before, and actually in an earlier episode, I even talked a little bit about this scenario. And since then, a couple of people have asked me, how close were they with the 12-week average when it all, at the very end, I'm sure you did a postmortem and kind of went back through, because a lot of things, that episode when we talked a little bit about this, some people are like, look, we realize we have to have this business continuity plan for that exact scenario, and what would we do? And so I think this is great because a lot more people are going to come to this from watching this episode. So, like, can you give us an idea how close you were? Was that what you would do again, or would you change anything?
That's a great question. I think looking back, we were pretty accurate. I would say when we reconciled time, I think we overpaid about 48% of the employees. So we kind of erred a little bit on giving a little extra money just to make sure we could cover all of the kind of what if scenarios. Obviously, there's outliers. Whenever you look at that bell curve, some people were grossly overpaid, some were underpaid, and they were made whole at the end. But from an accuracy perspective, I would say, we were about pretty close to 6% deviation from a normal pay.
It just seems like there's no I mean, yes, obviously that's a great 12-week average, stuff like that, but it doesn't seem like you're ever going to get a right answer here, right? I don't think there is one, right? I mean, it's just get the closest possible.
Probably a big number because it's such a large payroll, but 6% yeah, I mean, you didn't shut the company down. Everybody got, nobody skipped a mortgage and all that stuff. I mean, that's a testament to employee experience.
Right, 100%. Yeah, getting those paychecks out the door.
Absolutely, Chris.
Yeah, from a senior leadership perspective, the senior leadership was great. I think they realized very quickly that this was an outage from a vendor. It's obviously not something that any person or team did internally to the organization. And so we had some really kind of strong leaders who, one, supported our team, kept asking even my team members, what do you need from us to continue to support? How can we help you? At one point, we even had a couple of leaders who stepped in and said, hey, make sure your team is taking time to themselves and getting some breaks, because and that's really important, because during that time, especially with the year began and moving into the first quarter, we had team members working around the clock, supporting the people in the field, answering questions, keeping up the spreadsheets and the mass uploads for the amounts so we could get everybody paid. So leadership responded well, I would say.
Nice.
No,
that
that's
helps
great.
a lot. I mean, I imagine what was the longest day you worked in that period?
Probably that very first Sunday and Monday, because Sunday, of course, it was a non-working day for me. So I had plans, I was out and about, and then obviously those plans quickly canceled, stayed home. This was in 2021. So a lot of people were still working from home, kind of in that post-COVID era. So quickly came home, had calls go well into the night. And then obviously going into the next day, communication plans, implementing a lot of the plans that we talked about the previous day. And then we still kind of managed to keep our schedule of starting our payroll process at 8 p.m. on Monday night. So
that's great.
Sounds super stressful. I have a question. What does an enterprise global payroll badass like you do when you're not doing payroll? Like after this scenario's over, it's put to bed, postmortem's over. What makes Chris tick?
Obviously, after that whole scenario, it was going to the beach, kicking back with a nice cold drink, a little sun, a little sand, and a lot of water. So
funny, I see you smirking. You were thinking something else, weren't you?
Yeah, we have some other stories that Chris will talk about later, not on this podcast.
For sure.
I do want to, kind of still go back to it though. How long was the outage? And then how did you close it out, right? Like, so I imagine it went all the way through the end of the year. Did you have to do a lot of W-2Cs? Did you get the actual data, or like, how did that conclude?
Yeah, great question. So our full outage was, and every customer had a different outage period, depending on size of system and recovery time, et cetera. Our full outage was 10 weeks. We got the system back, I think, on week 8. But obviously, when you get the system back, you can't just go right back into running time. So we had to catch up employee master data, financial data of new cost centers, old cost centers, like get all that new structure in there, especially because it was year began, right? And we had to get the system caught up and production ready, and we had to advance the payroll to the current period that we were about to execute, right? Because we basically had to skip all of those weeks. So on week 11, we started with actual time. So we took all the time, all the clocks were turned back on. The company I worked for still used a lot of the clocks on the walls with the employee badges. So we had those clocks, we reconnected all the clocks. The good news is if the employees continued to punch during that time, all of those punches for that outage period were downloaded from the clock into the system, which was great. So, that's a big kind of another learning there, or lesson learned. Keep those clocks up and running, because as soon as that system came back up, it downloaded all the punches, which is great. So week 10, we started running regular payroll for that current week, right? And so now we've got 10 weeks that were skipped where we just paid a salary for all those folks. We went through a extended project, if you will, from basically March to the first part of May, where we asked our time admins to basically reconcile a week back for each week of the outage and reconcile that time while they're also running the current time for the current week, which you can imagine the difficulty there. Put a lot of stress on the field, but we were supporting them and reconciling those time cards and making sure that, hey, we're going to back out the pay in SAP. We're going to put in the new time card, make sure that new time card's good. Then we're going to pass that over to SAP. And then we use that amazing power of retroactivity in the system. And on, I think it was the second week of May. So the outage started December 11th. The second week of May, we loaded 10 weeks of the missing time. We backed out all of those kind of salary payments, if you will, for all of those employees, that flat payment that we made. And then we processed those 10 weeks, and we also processed the current week of pay. So we processed 11 weeks of pay in 1 week, which was pretty amazing. And we had to upsize the system to support that, add additional capacity from an infrastructure perspective, but we worked through it, captured all of the kind of the details of the underpayments, the overpayments, what that delta was. We were able to keep the employees whole at that point. For anybody who was underpaid, they received that additional money immediately in that week's paycheck. And then the overpayments went through a review process, and the majority of those overpayments were forgiven.
Man,
Wow.
that is unbelievable. I mean, so I got one last question. I'm gonna shut up. I know I've been, I'm just so curious about this whole thing. Can you imagine what this would have been like if you didn't have a system that could retro?
Oh my God, I don't know. Like, I've heard stories. A lot of people, similar scenario. Maybe they just paid a flat amount, but I've heard stories of some companies that weren't ever able to reconcile and figure out what the delta for the number was. The fortunate thing, we were able.
That's awesome.
Oh, that's great, Chris. And well, Chris, I on behalf of all the payroll baddies, we want to thank you for coming on. I think the stories and the experiences you shared were phenomenal. I think everyone that's listening out there kind of can now see all the hard work and pain and suffering that went into making sure that people got paid accurately on time, and even if we had to go back and do some retros, right? Like it's not easy. And, on behalf of everyone, thank you and your entire team, right, for kind of making everyone whole. That being said, no, absolutely. I think we're looking forward to doing more and more collaborations. And for everyone listening, I want to thank you guys for tuning in. If you aren't following us, make sure to like, subscribe, follow us on LinkedIn. We have a lot more amazing episodes and content coming through. And, more and more updates, cool events, news, updates. So make sure you tune in to make sure you're not missing anything. So that being said, Raj, any final parting words?
No, again, thank you, Chris. Again, I get energized every time I hear, payroll stories like that. But again, to be honest, it doesn't have to be so extreme, right? I mean, day in and day out, there's small stories like this happening every day just to make sure employees get paid. And it's amazing, all the hard work that goes into it. So again, thank you, all the payroll baddies out there. And, thank you, Chris, for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
Bye, everybody.
Yo, it's Payroll Baddies. We keeping it hype, doing payroll right. We don't need no strike. Work they calling y'all rock stars, ain't that cute? Day Force, UKG, y'all still in pursuit. But we baddies in the game, bringing more to the loop. Yo, baddies bring the clarity, got clarity in sight. We bringing payroll tech, making it right, spreading the word. From S4 to the cloud, Daddy's got the vision, making payroll proud. SAP payroll is king, we're wearing the crown. Those companies starting with P, y'all know the name. Try to keep up, but it's not the same. Tech on lock, we automating the flow. No more headaches, we let that payroll glow. Innovating daily, got the future on deck. Payroll baddies, running it, showing respect. So all the payroll baddies, you know who you are. Join the cause, let's take it far. All you baddies out there, it's time to rise. Join the movement, no compromise. Keep your rock stars, we're classy, no charades. Payroll baddies, ready to fight and get